All right, welcome back to our final video in our Cybersecurity Awareness Month series. We're actually going to combine three separate tips: our day 30, 31, and bonus day 32 tip, all of which are related to choosing a security partner if you decide to go that route. This is one of the bigger questions we get. Obviously, I have some bias. I'm a managed service provider, so I think you should work with a partner usually. There are definitely some instances where you wouldn't, but if you do choose to do so, I want to give you some tips on how to find the correct partner. There's three basic areas that I usually recommend people look at when we're talking about partner selection. First, operational maturity level. Second, stack compatibility. And third, obviously, is cost. So let's kind of dive into this a little bit. What is operational maturity level, or OML? Your OML is kind of like the maturity of your organization's processes and just general style of doing business, I guess. And the reason this is important is because as you're going to work with a partner, you need to work with someone with a similar maturity level to you generally for it to work really well. A good example of this is simply being reactive versus proactive. If you as an organization choose to be a bit more reactive, you wait for things to break before you replace them. Maybe you're not necessarily looking at moving towards more preventative technologies. You're okay with taking a little bit more risk to preserve cash. That's okay. It's a business decision, right? So we're not going to say, hey, that's the wrong way to do business, but you probably don't want a partner who stresses heavily on the proactive side. If your kind of method of operation, because your risk is fairly low, is to wait for a desktop to die before you buy a new one, you probably don't want a partner that's going to insist on you replacing a desktop every 5 years. So finding a balance there is important. Another kind of good example is how processing and planning works, right? If your partner is very big on annualized budget and planning, saying, hey, here's the projects you need to do this year, and you're not in that kind of planning methodology, either because your business just doesn't require it, or just as stylistically, you don't want to work that way. You don't want a partner who's insisting on it. And even communication style, right? If you're a fairly casual person and you just want somebody to give you a call and you're okay with that kind of stuff, that works out really well. But you might not want a partner who insists that you submit every ticket to a single email address, or that you go through these very explicit steps to get support. The opposite can also be true. I've worked with a lot of law firms where they have a very clear hierarchy. They want you to contact the office manager for all issues. They will do the initial kind of response, and then they will escalate to their partner internally if you need to work with them, or they'll schedule time on their computers. They don't want you calling the attorneys directly. You want a partner who can adapt to that kind of stuff. So understanding the maturity level that you're operating at and that your partner is operating at is tip number one. Be honest with yourself. There's no better or worse. It just depends on the kind of business it is. Usually, maturity levels will go up as businesses scale because it's almost required, but there's no like hard and fast rule on this. So pick the maturity level that works for your business at its current size and current business kind of operations, and find a partner that matches that. And that means over time you may change partners, which is okay. Second, you want to look at stack compatibility. And when we talk about technology stack, what we mean is the tool sets your partner is bringing to the table with you. We spent a lot of time talking about defense in depth, and this is right where it comes in. You want to make sure that the tools that are being implemented by your partner are going to be kind of bringing something to the table and working with your existing tool sets. A really common example is how firewalls might interact with like a SOAR solution or a NAC solution, right? If you want automation on your network and your partner is like, hey, we really like this NAC tool set, so you should come to us because we offer it. It only adds value if it can interact with the firewalls you already have, or you need to look at replacing firewalls as well. So make sure that their stack aligns with what you're looking for and you understand kind of the ecosystem that's being created by bringing in this partner. In an ideal world, the sum of all these parts, all these security layers, kind of do more holistically than each individual would, and you want to make sure that their strengths align with your needs. If you're partnering with somebody who is known and has a solid reputation in HIPAA, but you're not a medical facility, that it adds some value, right? Like they have a fundamental understanding of security, but it doesn't mean as much as if you were a doctor's office who requires somebody with the knowledge of HIPAA. So make sure that the tool sets they're bringing, but also their knowledge sets align with what you're looking for. And finally, understanding budget. There's some common, pieces of math you can do to understand what your budget should be based on annualized loss expectancy and the risks that you're facing and things like that. But really, your budget should just be based on the idea that when you're implementing security solutions, you needed a return on investment, and that ROI is going to be based on reduction of risk from a security perspective. So, understanding what risks your business has is first. Obviously, if you're in somewhere like Hawaii, natural disasters like hurricanes, big deal. If you're in the middle of the Midwest, maybe not. So understanding where the threats to your business are there internal threats? Is there ransomware? That's probably the top one for most people from a cybersecurity concern right now, and how these might impact your business. Understanding what the loss expectancy in the event one of these things occur, right? And understanding how often they might occur. If you're in an area that floods every 10 years, for example, and you know that if one of those big floods hits, you're going to be, it's going to cost you $100,000. You want to plan for $10,000 a year's of damage, and that's kind of what you have as a budget. If you can mitigate the flooding for less than $10,000 a year, cool. If you can't, then you have to kind of work on some other method, maybe insurance or some such. So, understanding your budget is really about understanding your risk and the cost of those risks over time. And then you apply those to things like staffing, tools, partnerships, or whatever you want to get the most bang for your buck. And any good partner should align with this, right? Just because they have a phenomenal security offering doesn't mean that it's worth every or all the money, depending on what your risks are. So figure out kind of where your budget is and find partners that align with that budget. And if you can get all three of these in order, you'll have a great partnership. If the budget is more than you're looking to spend, it might put you in a bad place financially as a business. If the OML is off, you're not going to have a good relationship, and that's pretty hard. And if you don't have stack alignment, it's just going to feel like gears are grinding all the time, right? Like you're not getting the most out of your money usually if there's no stack alignment. All right, so those are your three tips. Thanks for tuning in to Cybersecurity Awareness Month. We have a lot more videos coming up, but for this one, we're going to call it a wrap on this series.